Hi guys, this is the second of two games sent over by Low Tech Games for the Dreamcast. They sent over Flea, and there's a link to that video down in the description because I'll probably end up uploading them at the same time. But today we're looking at Tapeworm Disco Puzzle, and these are available on the PC, the NES and the Dreamcast. And I would have gone for the NES version, but I don't have an NES currently in the game room, so I'll be reviewing this version on the Dreamcast. But they look pretty much the same for all intents and purposes, so you can judge for yourself from this video. If you want to pick one up, you can decide what platform you want to go for. Again, we've got kind of a North American NTSC style case, and looks pretty good. There's a link down in the description if you want to grab yourself a copy. I think the guy sells them on Etsy, yeah, pretty good quality. It looks like they're kind of you know, CDRs and kind of homemade case and everything, but the print quality is really good. I'm quite impressed by it. So yeah, let's see if the game's any good.
Tapeworm Disco Puzzle is a puzzle game starring a worm who you guide around the single screen levels. Rather than being a tapeworm in the usual sense, Tapeworm stars a worm that lives in a cassette tape and as such has a musical theme. You even get a little worm popping out of a tape on the VMU. The aim is to collect musical notes dotted around the maze-like screens and also help fleas collect blood. Clearly some assets and themes were borrowed from Low-Tech's other game Flea, or vice versa. To collect the musical notes, all you have to do is reach them. For the blood, you need to get underneath the fleas to nudge them upwards so they can collect them. You also have to keep the fleas alive until you've completed the level, which occasionally adds an extra element of strategy. This could be protecting them from falling into spikes, for example, which you do by shielding their fall with your worm's body. This can be time sensitive too, as sometimes fleas are bouncing on these numbered blocks which disappear after being touched that number of times. And strategy is really the name of the game here. Some puzzles are very straightforward, but some you have to take your time and consider carefully, working out the exact route to take and in which order to collect everything. You start each level with the worm's head popping out of the tape, and you can switch between either of two holes to start. Your worm can only extend as far as the number indicated at the top by the worm icon. So for example, the number 10 means that you can move 10 squares. The number at the top left is the current level, and the top right numbers indicate how many musical notes and blood capsules are left to collect. The latter seems a bit unnecessary to me because you can see it all on a single screen anyway. You can extend your worm's reach by collecting these tapes, which each add an extra 4 spaces to your worm's potential length. Collecting these is usually essential to completing the level, although deciding when to extend your reach can also be a factor. Hazards are pretty much the same as in Flea, spikes and both ground-based and flying creatures, all of which result in a one-hit kill. Being a puzzle game, there are no lives, instead you're just reset to the start of the level to try again. Later levels add more elements. This liquid will propel you along until you reach the end of that line of squares. This often requires that you use some sort of barrier to stop you, like the blood capsules or even your worm's own body. These amusingly named wormholes transport you to one of the other wormholes on the screen. You never know which wormhole you'll exit until you try, and deciding which direction to enter a wormhole is vital so that you exit the other wormhole in the correct direction. There are gates with buttons to press to open them, and these blocks vanish when touched, just like the numbered blocks, but these disappear on first contact. The arrows from Flea make another appearance too, which propel the fleas in that direction once you nudge them into the path of an arrow. Whatever the element introduced, Tapeworm does a fantastic job of easing you in and teaching you the mechanics. When a new gameplay element appears, the first few levels will teach you the basic principles of how they work in a very simple manner. Then the difficulty ramps up, and those new elements are incorporated into some clever puzzles. Some levels also involve guiding a flea to an exit, using the worm's body as a bridge or to protect the flea from hazards. These screens also add extra elements to the mix, like movable crates and fans that propel the flea upwards. Every so often there's sort of a boss level in which the worm actually leaves the tape and is propelled forward continuously, just like in the Nokia classic Snake. All you need to do here is guide the worm through the level and collect the items, although it can be trickier than it sounds, especially because you aren't given the time to think as you are in the rest of the game. Each stage starts with a tape displaying a 4-character code, which is a password you can use to access that level from the main menu, so you can always start off where you left off, provided you take note of the code. As with Flea, this game feels very much like an NES game through and through. The graphics and sound feel very 8-bit, and by the way, the music is excellent. Although I love this on the Dreamcast, I would definitely recommend going for the NES version if you have the means, and I would have loved to see this on the Mega Drive. But I absolutely love this game, so it's a recommendation on Dreamcast for me too. There have been far flashier and more complex games released for the Dreamcast in recent years, but few have given me the simple pleasure that this has. Solving puzzles can be very tricky indeed, but that just makes them all the more satisfying to crack. Although Flea was a bit too masochistic for me personally, Tapeworm has the perfect balance, and the chilled pace is far less stressful despite the challenge. As always, there's a link to a site where you can grab yourself a copy, and thanks again to Low Tech Games for sending this over. I'm off to play some more Tapeworm. Thanks for watching.